Hello, Dominic here from the Bournemouth Writing Festival. Welcome to another chat with a local writer, author, or writer professional from our local area here in Dorset. Now, this is going to be the last of the chats that I have in this YouTube series because I've got a lot of work to do now. The deadline for entries to be part of the Writing Festival elapsed last week. So now my job is to wade through all of those amazing submissions and choose the programme along with the advisory board. We've had over 100 submissions for people to take part, so there's a lot of work to do. So today I am delighted to be talking to Callum, McKelvie and Avery Taylor, who now run a new writing group for LGBTQ plus members of our community. So if you don't know, the Bournemouth Writing Festival, together with BCP Libraries, created this thing called Writers' Havens, which are informal writing groups in libraries, but other volunteers have come forward and said, I'd like to start a writing group, and I'm more than happy to promote them. So they had their first one last month. So I'm really looking forward to hearing how that went and what their plans are for the future. So first of all, Callum McKelvie is the features editor for All About History, and he writes fiction as well as scripts, and he writes mainly in the horror genre. So Callum, welcome. Hello.
Hi, Dominic. Thanks for having me.
No problem at all. And Avery is originally from the United States, Minnesota, and she came over to the UK and to Bournemouth to study creative writing at Arts University Bournemouth, and she focuses on children's and young adults. Her third year project saw her create the Storytellers Festival, aimed at encouraging young people to tell stories using various means. So hello, Avery.
Hi, it's lovely to be here.
Thank you for being here. So Callum, if I can start with you, let's talk about your writing. So your day job is history, and I think you did that at university, but your main genre that you write in is horror. So tell us a little bit about why you write horror. Kind of, do you get inspiration from the past? Like, tell us a little bit about that.
I guess I've always loved spooky stuff. I was always that weird kid who liked all the kind of scary things. I've always been interested in folklore and in kind of gothic elements in history. And I've always been drawn to kind of the horror genre as a place in which to explore kind of those themes. I also think horror's a really good genre in which to kind of explore social issues. And particularly, I think, as a queer person, there's a really rich history of the horror genre being used to explore kind of queer themes, queer ideas. I don't always tend to look at the past, but I do find that in my day job working on a history magazine, there's a lot of stories that I've come across that would make great horror stories that are sometimes real life is far more horrifying than fiction, and there's stranger things out there than you'd imagine. So I've got a long list of ideas I need to mine.
And Halloween was last week, so is this time of year really busy for you? Is this when you see an uptick in your sales or your website hits?
It's the point when all the competitions suddenly want ghost stories and horror stories, and so it's mining my folder for any short stories and thinking, right, what fits, what can I send it out to? But it's also, it's my favorite time of year, so I'm also out partying, trying to have a good time. So yeah, it's a good time all around.
And what first got you into horror? What made you? Was it a historical character, or like why horror?
I have a mother who is very, very good at indulging kind of her weird kid. I've got a very distinctive memory of her playing Dance Macabre and dancing me around the living room and telling me stories of kind of skeletons and all this kind of stuff. Nothing too extreme, but kind of Scooby-Doo levels of horror for a kid. And I think it was just that. And then I think, obviously, as I said, I do think that the kind of the queer element, there is a really rich history of queer writers, queer filmmakers being really instrumental in, obviously Mary Shelley, who wrote Frankenstein, and who has a Bournemouth connection. we now know was queer, but also James Whale, who directed the famous 1930s film version of Frankenstein with Boris Karloff. He was also an openly gay man. And so I think quite a lot of queer people feel drawn to horror. And I kind of include myself in that, because my horror stories include very strong queer themes. They usually have queer characters. And I'm very interested in kind of intertwining, those two elements. I hope that answers your question. That's a very long, rambling answer.
No problem. And Avery, let's come over to you. So you focus more on children and young adults. So tell us a little bit about how you got started there.
Yeah, so I, like any author, pretty much grew up always reading books. I blame it on me being an only child, that I literally just had a library of books always, or would play with all of my toys. And I wrote in my 5th grade autobiography that I wanted to be a professional children's author like Mo Willems. And I just literally, every school picture, I had a book in my hand. I was always reading. I found the joys of fan fiction at a certain age, and then just kept writing with that and learning that, I actually could turn this into a profession. And kind of through that, I kind of fell more in love with YA and less in love with children's. And it wasn't actually until my first year at uni that I really got into writing children's picture books and for really young kids. And that was just from a poetry unit, which was just completely random, and I wasn't expecting it, but I had so much fun writing for things that didn't really matter, because a lot of my YA new adult books are very similar actually to Callum, where it is kind of exploring the kind of queer themes as I kind of came to terms with my sexuality and learned to accept it in myself, but also started seeing more kind of things in society that I was starting to disagree with, and I wanted to incorporate that in my writing because it felt really important. So having the children's kind of writing as an outlet was really important for me, to have a moment to just chill, have some fun with my writing, but also kind of give back to my younger self, who just fell in love with books from such an early age.
And do you find that there's a market or kind of books out there for young adults who are not quite sure whether they are straight or gay or queer or whatever? So this is if you kind of found a gap in the market that kind of helps young people to express themselves and understand who they are.
Yeah, I think it's definitely growing. It's not as big as it could be, but I think off the top of my head from when I was growing up, books like Love, Simon were huge, because that was someone kind of exploring everything. And then now last month, Heartstopper came out, or earlier this month, Heartstopper came out with season 3. So we're starting to see more of those books. But especially for me, since I'm pansexual or bisexual within that umbrella, it's really important to see kind of bi representation. And so it's trying to kind of, especially when it comes to female bisexuals and bi people who might be in a straight passing relationship. So those are kind of important for me to explore. And we aren't seeing a ton of those yet, but I think especially with shows, like I said, like Heartstopper, you're starting to see some of that bi representation that I think is just really important. But yeah.
Okay, great. So tell us a little bit about your the work you did for the Storytellers Festival that you did, because it's not just about writing, is it? It's about different forms of communication. So tell us a little bit about that and your inspiration behind it.
Yeah, so that I was actually really excited about. It's probably one of the uni projects that kind of left me with the most kind of passion and drive post-grad, that my dissertation. But yeah, my Storytellers Festival is essentially, I had myself who was kind of trying to inspire kids to tell their stories through words and through writing. I had another volunteer who was another student at AUB who was trying to do that through storytelling, and then another through drawing and pictures, and then another one who was also trying to help support through acting and the body. And essentially we broke the students off. It was at a local primary school. We broke them off into 3 groups and had them switch between the 3. And we ran quick 15-minute workshops just to kind of get the creative juices going and see what they could create in a very quick turnaround, but also learn the different ways that you could tell stories, because I know that not everyone likes writing in the same way that I'm not very good at drawing. So the students who are really good at drawing had a chance to see how other people work, but also kind of see, oh, I actually am really bad at storytelling this way, but really good at storytelling through pictures and things. So yeah, it was really fun.
And are you planning to continue to do that, or was that part of the university course, or do you have ambitions at some point in the future to keep that going?
Yeah, so I have run one workshop recently in the library, which was fab. Still very much trying to learn what works, what doesn't, because obviously 8-year-olds are very different, especially 8-year-olds kind of from when I was 8. It's been absolutely insane kind of learning more about the media that they're consuming and the way that they engage, especially now because social media has become so big and the digital age is so much bigger. But I'm definitely looking at doing more community projects with younger kids to teach them about writing and creativity. But I think we'll probably get to it later, but I'm also hoping to run a queer writing workshop for this group or just in general, because I think it's really important, especially as writers, but also as queer people, to build that community together. And I love meeting new people and kind of building some communities and having people meet each other. I think it's really fun.
Well, that's a great point for me to talk about this area that you're in. So, Callum, question for you. So, I believe you came from Wales to Bournemouth for work, but have you found the LGBTQ plus community here in Bournemouth?
Yeah, I mean, obviously where I came from in Wales as well, there was a reasonably sort of small queer community. So moving to Bournemouth, it comes across as it's quite big, and I think it is growing. We have a number of LGBT bars, places like the OMK, Mother's Bar, Pride Bar. There are great spaces like Flirt, which are LGBT friendly. And I think there's a growing number of groups, and there's a real sense of a burgeoning community. And I think what's great as well is that there's a real kind of hunger for it. When we started advertising this, there was a lot of interest. Other queer groups I'm in, there seems to be a lot of burgeoning interest. So I think the queer community in Bournemouth is really great, and it's growing, which is the most important thing. There's a real kind of sense of a growing community.
Great. And same question to you, really, Avery, because you've come over from Minnesota in the United States to Bournemouth. Have you found the queer community in Bournemouth?
Yeah, I think it's slightly different for me because I went to the Arts University, which I feel like is more heavily leaning towards the queer community, which is really nice to find yourself not only in a creative community, but also one that is very kind of leaning towards your sexuality and kind of the way that you identify. As an adult, obviously making friends as an adult is really hard, but having groups like this has been really important. And I go to Pride, which is phenomenal here. I finally went to the actual festival this year after 4 years of living here, and it was just an exceptional time, like any Pride. Obviously in the US, I kind of knew most of the Pride things because I've been going my entire life to ours, so it's interesting seeing something different. But yeah, I think it's very well embraced here. It could be better, but I think small groups like us, and I know that there are other groups around, are doing kind of the work to try and get everyone to meet each other and build that sense of community here.
And I think it's really funny that, Callum, your website is black and it's horror and it's got skeletons, and your background, you've got a picture of the Scream. And Avery, you're the other side of the spectrum. You've got your pastel colors with stars and bright, and you've got twinkling lights in the background. You could be more opposite, but yet you've come together to create a writing group for the LGBTQ plus community. So tell us why you felt, Callum, you wanted to create a writing group. And then maybe, Avery, do you want to talk about how your first one went?
So yeah, I think in terms of myself, the initial inspiration was just, it seemed like it seemed like a natural hole waiting to be filled. I think, as I mentioned before, personally, my stories quite often have queer themes. And it's not that other writing groups, can't read that work or don't understand that work. It's nothing like that at all. but there is something when you are kind of writing from a queer perspective about sharing that with other queer people, and getting to know other queer writers, getting their perspectives. It's just a very different experience, all to do with the sense of community. And it was just something that I kind of felt, I was honestly quite surprised that there wasn't one. I Googled and thought, right, let's see, this is not going to be something you're going to end up doing. You know, as you said, I've got a picture of the Scream. I'm a goth at heart. I'm not an outgoing person. And so I was like, this is not going to be something you're going to have to do because someone else will have done it. And then I Googled and I was like, oh no, you have to do this now. And so it was really great that Avery was interested in doing the same thing at the same time, because it meant that the little goth didn't have to come quite all the way out of his shell. But yeah, I think that the initial thing was just this sense of, it just seemed like something that was maybe needed, and the fact that we got so much kind of initial, before the first session, we got so much initial kind of interest, far more interest than I could ever have hoped for or expected, really proved, I think, that it is something that the queer community in Bournemouth is really interested in.
Well, thank you so much for putting your hand up to volunteer, and obviously the Bournemouth Writing Festival are delighted to promote it as much as we can. So Avery, I think the first one was at Fleur Cafe, so tell us how it went.
Yeah, it was really, really good. So the first one that we held was just a social. So we just kind of sat and chit-chatted with each other for 2 hours. Callum and I introduced kind of what the group was about, what we were planning on, and just generally what they could expect from the group. And we just sat and kind of met everyone who would hopefully come back. And so it was absolutely lovely. We had a huge turnout, we kept having to add more tables to Flirt because we had the Eventbrite. I kept messaging Callum being like, there are more people, we need to add more tables or things like that. So it was really exciting kind of building up to it. And then the second one, I would say, just went even better, because we're just continuing to learn and we're continuing to take on feedback and also just grow the group in the way that we kind of are planning and hoping that it can grow into. And yeah, it was just a wonderful kind of sit down, everyone writes. A lot of the feedback was super positive, just being like, I wouldn't have written if I wasn't in this group. And I was kind of in the same boat where it was like you were writing, and if you stopped writing for a second, you'd see everyone else continuing on. And so you took a step back, we're like, I need to keep writing. So it was really fun. And both of them were in Flirt, which was also just nice to be in a queer venue, and especially supporting a family-owned business in Bournemouth. It's really nice to be able to do.
It's a fantastic venue, and we use it a lot for various different things, networking events. So Avery, so what happens during the session? Is it do you write and then people read it out to get feedback, or do you give a theme? Like what's the kind of structure of that group?
Yeah, so the group is really open. It's kind of just bring whatever you're working on, sit down with other people, have a bit of a write, and then at the end we just socialize, just general. There's no expectation to share any of your work, to do anything. You just meet other people, but also have a chance to get some writing down. And we do a 2-session structure. So at the end of November, we're going to have our first kind of workshop session or critique session. So essentially in those, that's where you'd kind of bring your work, you'd read it out, or everyone will have read it out before. And then we can just kind of say, what do you want to work on? What do you want to improve on? And be able to give that feedback then. But yeah, mostly it's just getting some writing in and making sure that you're writing on a day that maybe you wouldn't have gotten any words down on the page.
Wonderful. So Callum, what are the details if anyone watching this would like to come to the group?
So the best thing to do is to shoot us a email. We have a WhatsApp group where we tend to keep people mostly updated on there, and when we're inviting people into the WhatsApp group. I'm just trying to find our email address because something's blocking me. Sorry.
You can find it on the Bournemouth Writing Festival website under local writing groups, and then just click on the link and you can email Callum directly, and Callum will let you know when, where, what time the next group is that right? Or do you have set days of the month yet, or is that still to be decided?
No, at the minute it's we tend to usually meet on Sundays, on Sunday afternoons, 2 till 4. But what Sunday that is varies. And so we're letting people know the session dates before. And so yeah, I can if they shoot me a line, I can let them know. I can also add them to the WhatsApp group if they're interested. Which is just another great space we've got where people are kind of sharing their own work and sharing ideas, suggesting things. We're really hoping that the group's going to be organic and grow with the ideas that the members have. So yeah, if they send me an email, that's the best place really to find out more information.
Great. Well, I think it's absolutely brilliant that the two of you have, as I said, put your hand up and volunteered to run these groups. So head over to the Bournemouth Writing Festival website and look for the local writer groups, because there's lots of different writers' havens that are on there in libraries. There's online, and there's also outside of BCP as well. So and if anyone watching this does have a local writing group, send me the details and I will put it up on the website for free. So thank you, Callum, very much for joining me tonight.
Thank you for having me, Dominic.
And thank you, Avery.
Thank you, Dominic. It was lovely to be here.
Thank you for joining me. And to the rest of you, as I said, this is the last chat we're going to be having until for this year, certainly, because I've got to knuckle down and start getting the writing festival together. We do have a couple of networking events happening between now and the writing festival. The first one is on Wednesday, the 27th of November, and that's going to be at the old schoolhouse in Boscombe, where we're going to be celebrating our writing competition for poetry and short stories with Bournemouth University. And then on the Thursday, the 16th of January, 2025, we're going to be holding our launch event for the 2025 Writing Festival, where we shall be revealing the programme of what's going to be happening. And that's going to be at Patch, which is on the first floor of Bobby's. It's a new co-working space. So have a look at the website for all the details. Otherwise, I shall see you on the 25th, 26th and 27th of April for the Bournemouth Writing Festival. So until then, take care. See you again. Bye-bye.